Hey everybody, welcome to this week's Fateless podcast episode. Joining me from the Fateless team is going to be Simon and Paul, Hellhades and Saphira, and then our special guest this week is going to be Ragewood. How you doing, man? What's up?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm good, thank you. Good to be here.
Very nice, very nice. Go ahead and give the little spiel and talk about kind of your gaming history and what you do over with your content and all that good stuff.
Quick, yeah, sure. So, Ragewood, big time gamer, small time content creator. I started gaming with the original PlayStation back in '96. My parents bought for me and my sister. I remember a game called Speed Freaks, which is like the predecessor for Mario Kart. Then had the N64, Dreamcast, GameCube, Super Smash Bros, all that kind of stuff. As I got older, Age of Empires, Shogun Total War.
Oh,
I played, yeah.
Wait.
Game.
Age of Empires. Do you play Age of Empires 4?
No, not now. I've still got the older ones in like a 4-disc CD case with all the manuals and things like that. Sort of sounded sort of furniture over there.
Yeah, very nice.
And then the original Xbox came out. Halo was a big thing. Halo 2, Halo 3. I loved those. I was in like the top 50 on Lone Wolf's Deathmatch at one point as well. And then moved on to PC and mobile games from there.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I think you've come out as our community. Spy's not the right word, but detective, I guess. At any time I accidentally drop any information about Godforge, or like even like a smallest bit of detail, I know that you're going to pick up on that, and it's going to be in your videos, and then you go deep dive on it, and I'm just like, oh no. And I would say it's at least like 95% right. you just seem,
really? No.
Well, you just seem to nail so many of your theories, and I'm like, it's almost like you're a fly on the wall, honestly, half the time.
It makes me laugh. Like, I wonder whether you leave like little Easter eggs in there on purpose for me to sort of try and find.
Well, sometimes I think I do. Sometimes definitely not. Sometimes it's just a mistake. But you know,
I get the feeling sometimes you just can't help yourself as well. Let's be real.
Well, yeah,
here. It's like
definitely.
I just accidentally let it slip. I said something here. It's like, oh, it's surprise.
It's exciting. We were doing something which is really exciting. You talked about your history in gaming. Mine's similar, and to be sitting in this position where we're producing our own game, and we're designing the features, and we're trying to make sure that it's as cool as possible. It's like dream come true stuff. So, you do just get excited when you actually start to see some of the work, and it's hard work, come through. It's really exciting, and you do want to share it. I want to share a lot more than I do, in fair, but.
Yeah, and Ragewood, we should plug your site. It's ragewoodgaming.com, correct? And
it is indeed.
Actually a really good resource, even for us, because it's handy to remember what Simon has and hasn't leaked. So it's good for me to kind of we almost should have done this internally, like had a resource where we just track everything that's been linked. So you're doing a great job, ragewoodgaming.com. Loving it so far, man.
No, I'd be interested to know, what was the impetus behind doing that. I know it's a lot of work to build a site and stuff. So yeah.
So there was 2 before I started, Raven Pyros, and one done by Nick, who's one of the Discord moderators. And I remember just looking through them, and in my head I'm going, we know more. Like, this person has definitely been leaked, or I've seen it somewhere. And I was like, but maybe, busy people, and now I'm doing it myself. It's a lot of work. And then one of my friends was like, well, if you feel like you know so much, why don't you just do your own? Like, what's the worst that happens? Like, the worst that happens is it's a flop. You learn a bit about website design, and then that's it. Nothing other than time. The best thing that happens is you become a big resource. It kicks off, and potentially could become a career at some point. So
yeah. That's awesome. It's awesome to see you pushing in that direction, honestly. Because I know, I guess I first did a collab with you when we were talking Dragonhead, going back a little while. Now I don't know how long ago it was, maybe a year ago.
Last summer when they did the season 1 changes, I think it was.
Yeah, and obviously since then you've started to do more regular videos, and obviously covering Godforge as well. So is that where you kind of see your longer term future? Is it you'd like to be a content creator sort of full time?
If I can, but there's a long way to go as well.
Sure.
Like, the Dragonair is sort of... So I put out my first raid video 5 years ago. I looked at the other day on Drexar Blood Twin before I knew anything about video making or anything like that. There's no cuts or anything. It's just me just playing the game. It's got 12,000 views. It's mad.
Okay,
compared to... It's probably really outdated. And if I just stuck with it back then, who knows? I could be a full-time CC now. But, you know, things happened, stopped doing it. And then, last year I got back into it with Dragonair. And then for those of you who have played Dragonair, you all know that Season 4's been going for 9 months now. And I just couldn't bring myself to go through that again. And conveniently at the time, the Godforged name drops. And I thought, let's jump on the bandwagon.
Nice. Well,
yeah,
I think you've got a bunch of kind of like questions and, you know, your turn to grill us, really. Normally on podcasts, we're asking a lot of questions, but it feels like the shoe's on the other foot and you've come prepared. So I guess we dive in.
So I've got a few, and, you know, as we've sort of premised earlier, a lot of it you might not be able to answer right now, but we're still going to ask it anyway.
By the way, everyone, Paul's here today to try and stop me just answering all of it. So
I am the official Phixion representative in this call, and I would like to put a disclaimer at this moment in time that if I don't stop anything, it is absolutely not my fault. I can't control the man. He's too excited. He sees too many things, and we'll just go with it. We'll see what we can do. Can I just say as well, this is the first podcast that I'm in that the Brits have outweighed the Americans. This is amazing. It's like 3 Brits in a call. This is brilliant.
This is
represent.
We're working on it.
This is brutal, but it's gonna be amazing for me because you know, half my job seems to be skirting the line of what I'm gonna get in trouble for leaking or not. So this is great that I have Simon here, so at least he can get blamed for it and not me on these podcasts. So this will be awesome.
I guess we'll start at the top then. So obviously we know Godforge is using its sort of stereotypical energy-based system that you see in multiple games. In games like Dragonair, they do have a reserve of 5 days that regenerates at half the normal rate. Is this something you have thought about bringing into Godforge or looking to do? Because I know there's a lot of talk of that in the Discord as well from the community.
Yeah, so I think good question to kick us off, actually. One thing I'll say before I give you our kind of like rounded answer is just started playing a new free-to-play account on Raid. Okay, so it's something we do at HH Gaming annually. We kind of get this new free-to-play competition going. And on day 3, I could not play the game anymore because I'd run out of energy and I'd run out of resources, you know? So at that point, it's like, well, I now have to stop playing or spend to get premium currency. So that's something we definitely don't want the experience to be, is that you can't enjoy the game and play for longer periods of time. And I think Paul probably have the full details, but we're definitely looking to have like a reserve energy pool. I think one of the influences for this was actually either Honkai or Genshin, where almost like if you're on holiday mode and you don't log in for a couple of days, you get a bit of a saved energy bank, but it saves at a lower rate than how a normal energy would refill. So what we don't want to do is encourage people to just stop playing for a week because they know an event's coming up, and you know, so all these things. This is the challenge of game design, is all of these things you think is just a simple answer, and everyone assumes that the answer is based around, will this create more income? But also it's kind of like this healthy balance of how much energy do you let someone have? Is it healthy to allow someone to play all day long? Does that make it really unfair if someone's got, you know, someone can play all day long versus the guy that literally is a worker and, you know, is coming home and only has got a couple of hours a day? So they're the type of things that you need to take into account. But I mean, ultimately, there will be some sort of energy bank, I guess, or something along those lines. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and I think to extend on that, I think we're absolutely mindful in game design decisions about giving player choices around when and at what point do they want to commit their time to play the game. Rage, for example, is extremely not tolerant of your time. You're either in, as soon as you hit cap, you don't earn any more energy, and you either have to spend it or you lose it kind of vibe. And certainly I think that's like a dated approach. And we're looking at systems in the game that always encourages you to be able to return and keep going, or there's a little bit of concept where You don't have to be there religiously on the dot all the time. But at the same time, there needs to be reasons for you to keep coming back to play the game. We can't just let you sit there and not play the game for 6 months and then come back and then have all the resources in the world, right? There's got to be a balance to it. But we are absolutely mindful in the discussions that we have in the design team that players, the psychology of being constantly on it all the time isn't necessarily always a healthy balance for the game.
What would you like to see out of interest?
I mean, I quite like the way that Dragonair did it in that they had a 5-day limit. You could store up to 5 days extra. I think that was quite good, but it would regenerate at half the rate rather than one every 15 minutes. It's one every half an hour. And then once you reach that sort of 750, it's bred in that game rather than NG or that's it. You can't gain anymore. But as you say, if someone is super busy or like yourselves, you're in meetings for a day and you can't get on, you don't have too much feel bads at the end of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice. Number 2. So in the Gamescom demo, at the end of the mission, there are some rewards that drop. One, looks like some regular gear that you would see in Raid, and then a special 6-star golden, looks like a sword. Now there has been talk of a weapon system in Godforge. Firstly, was that a weapon that dropped? And secondly, is the weapon system going to be similar to the new relic system in Raid or the artifact system that you see in Dragonair?
Don't know what I'm allowed to say on this one.
I can see Simon just smirking the whole time. I do want to back up and say something about your question.
Please do.
Yeah. Let's give Simon time to think here. I'm sure all of us can relate to this as being content creators for Raid. But what would happen to me when I was streaming Raid daily is I would hit a point where my energy's gone and I don't want to spend a bunch of gems. So I'm like, hey, chat, I guess let's just sit here and talk about champions because we can't do anything. So we do want a way for people to still do something in the game. And we haven't 100% ironed it out. But let's say you're a free-to-play player, you're out of energy. We do want something you can do to progress still a little bit or enjoy the game. You're streaming for 5 hours. There's something you can do after you run out of energy for an hour. But hopefully that gave Simon enough time to think about him addressing your weapon question.
Yeah. So I think I'm not going to go into detail on the system or anything like that because firstly, it's not. I think it's pretty finalized, but things can still change. And one thing that I can say is you will have gear and you will have a weapon slot. Okay,
oh, he's
that's all I'm going to say.
Hard. He's trying
that's
so
all I'm going to
hard.
say. Even now, I'm probably it's probably. I think that's enough because
we can add one extra thing to it, and we can say that slot is going to be absolutely amazing, and you've never seen it used in that style in any other game before.
Yeah, it's really
in the way
valuable.
that it works.
Yeah.
So that's as much I can say. Now I'm kind of leaking a hint that isn't actually a leak, but essentially you've never seen it done in the same way in other games.
Oh, that's exciting stuff. Look forward to that one. Might have been
a website blog post.
Yeah, it will be after. It's weird. I do reactions to every video and podcast and that comes out. It's do I do one for my own?
Yeah. Well, you absolutely should, right?
You should.
So if you think there's some stuff that you can add between the lines, then for sure. By the way, I love those videos. I love when people start to do that speculation stuff because firstly, it also gives us ideas. Sometimes it might be a case of we're going in a similar direction, but then I see some of those videos. I'm like, this is a really great idea. This is a really great bolt on to what we're kind of thinking about, or a direction we're already going in. And we'll ask the question to the design team: is this something that can actually be updated or enhanced, or that type of stuff? So some of those videos are actually really valuable, probably more than you realize. So.
Interesting. We'll make more of them then. So thirdly, in a podcast with Dirk, Dane, and Brad, whether it should or shouldn't have been mentioned, there was mention of an attunement system to sort of get around, I guess, the whole should gear swapping be free or not free, etc. Can you confirm whether those benefits are team-wide? They're going to be for the hero? Has it been undecided, right now? Is it too early? And likewise, is it some sort of premium currency to remove it?
So one of the things which we kind of sought out to do in Godforge right from the start, actually, was we wanted for role and position to matter. And that was actually why we went down that initial combat system, which we ended up scrapping, right? So we wanted that kind of like nostalgic feel to RPGs to be alive in Godforge. And this is one of the ways where we're going to be able to bring some of that back. So attunement will be a thing. I'm not going to tell you exactly what that means, but attunement will be a thing, and it will enhance champions in some way. And it won't be. It's not like premium currency led. That's not the idea. It's a way to almost get to the point where you start to min-max builds and commit to a direction with heroes. Probably more like a mid to end game mechanic, honestly, but obviously it can be used whenever, but it feels like to us it's more like that min-max in a role rather than like your day-to-day build.
Yeah, and I can say from a design perspective, in the design team, we have spent many an hour debating
back and forth
the merits between free gear swapping and not having free gear swapping, and the trend. We've talked about trends in other games. Obviously, myself and Simon, we do sponsors on lots of other games, and we see lots of other different systems, and there's pros and cons to all of it. So I can tell you confidently, the topic has been discussed in depth, probably more depth than we probably even dreamed we should have gone to, considering how it's
kind
been
of quite split, hasn't it? It's been quite split with different people wanting different directions, but because fundamentally, you think just pure free gear swapping is the way forward. And there's reasons why that's just not great. So like for a game economy, that's not great. And I mean, I've played games where it's purely free to swap whenever you want, and I find it actually worse. So personally, I don't like that system. I find that often I'm doing runs where people are not wearing the right gear because I've moved it onto someone else, and then I forgot where that is, and then I'm trying to rebuild again. And you're almost in this constant cycle of rebuilding, which I don't find fun. But also we understand that the general narrative of the community is that free gear swapping is the right way forward. So we have to balance that.
Yeah, our main goal and main outcome is to basically make sure that the experience you have when you build your heroes isn't hindered in any way by the base level of the economy, right? The worst experience in Raid Shadow Legends is you get a new champion and you have to firstly wait 6 months before you can even use it because you've got to wait for these tournaments. And then when you actually finally do it, you're almost like afraid to gear it in correctly because there's like this 1 million fee that you're going to have to pay if you make a mistake. So what we're trying to do is make sure from the design team that there's enough systems around everything that when you get a hero, you can have fun and play and experiment, and it's not going to just absolutely ruin your experience and your account because you've spent all the resources and you did it wrong, right? Because you didn't know you were learning. So that's kind of like a roundabout way of not answering your question, but to kind of say we're fully aware of the tone of what we need to achieve.
Cool. And then the last one that might sort of make you sweat a little bit, and then got some fun ones after. In the same aforementioned podcast, imprints were also sort of
Dirk
dropped.
What happened in this podcast?
Dirk's a tough one to keep.
What have they been doing? I mean, this is the first podcast I've been in a while. What has been going on in this podcast series? Question marks.
I knew you were going to mention this one.
Yeah. So my question was similar in Dragonair. If you pull a dupe legendary, you can almost do something similar, I guess, imprint a soul to sort of power them up. Once something has been imprinted, can you unimprint it? And could it be used for something else? And likewise, is imprinting like a skill tree where you start with commons and uncommons, then it has to be rares and epics, and then why you would want to lose a legendary hero forever, I don't know, but that being the top tier.
So again, this is an awkward one to chat about. So this should not have been spoken about by Dirk up front. And I remember when I saw it, I was like, what is he talking about here? He's literally just talking about one of the topics that is kind of like under the hat, right? So anyway.
Voodoo. Don't talk.
So I'm not going to give you details again because
That's fine.
we don't want to right now. But ultimately, we want for players that pull duplicate heroes to have almost the same level of excitement as if you pull the hero for the first time. But what we don't want is a system, I guess, like, I don't know if you played Eternal Evolution or King Arthur more recently, where you actually need tons of dupes to be able to use those heroes effectively. So that's not our system. Our system is like, once you've got a hero, it should feel strong really like out the gate. So if you get duplicate heroes, they are imprintable, and that's all I'm going to say.
That's it. Yeah.
Do you want me to save you here?
Yeah.
I'll
Jump in,
you.
Paul. I don't know what other words
The
I can use right
system,
now.
you have never seen it being done this way in any other game. Like, that's going to be my savior line. It's to Simon's point. We are devising systems in the game that doesn't create a capstone to your experience when you play the game, because that's like some of these things we've seen it in lots of games where it's like you either need the one hero and everything else doesn't matter, or you need, like, to Simon's point, like, it's cool, I've pulled a new legendary, but I actually need like 10 of them before it even gets anywhere near the realms of anything else I've got. We're avoiding those kind of concepts, but what we are doing is creating constant reasons to be excited about getting more heroes and doing things with them. And like I said, you've never seen it being used in this scale in any other game before. That's my safety. That's the safety line.
Yeah.
Never seen it like this before.
I'd love to know, if you were building a system where, you had a duplicate legendary or, what have you, what would you love to see?
I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. Like in Raid, for example, you can use the same hero on your team. If you have 5 Trunders, you can use 5 Trunders if you want to. Whereas Dragonair, you can't, sort of. Now, the way me and sort of JKG, who was on a podcast a few weeks ago, we did a little video and we were talking about almost like a Skyrim skill tree, so to speak, where your lesser value heroes will give you +5 attack, something like that. And then to sacrifice a legendary, obviously that's a big thing, but would come with a massive benefit, but that's going to be right at the top of the skill tree. So as you progress in the game, you'll find less use for rares, so you don't mind feeding your rares into this tree. Likewise, epics, and then eventually legendaries at the top.
Hey, interesting.
So,
Right that down, Paul. Yeah,
I always keep track of these things.
I would say, like, for us, it's super important that it still feels fun, and also, the whole vibe of an imprint is, because it's ultimately it's a different thing in our game. It also means it's possible for us to use that as a very cool event reward, for example, or so it might just be that we create a different form of premium currency, which is still extremely cool to get. But anyway, that's enough said about that. It's probably already said too much.
That's fine. So next, so emphasis has been put on having a diverse range of characters in your game, whether that's from body types, with characters like Yidre, Gok, and Zulong, giants, etc.
You said it, Nate. Well, we got to stop 1 second. Ragewood, the Welsh person, is the only one that seems to be able to say this name.
I thought you were going to say, well done, you got it right. So
you did do it better than anyone else in the company, so you've done a great job. But carry on, sorry. Just had to correct that.
With the camera angle being an over-shoulder view, how are you making sure that these larger units don't take up too much of the screen, or the animations interfere with perhaps the smaller heroes, or even preventing you from seeing the enemy in front of you?
Yeah, so actually, I said before we came onto camera, I just came from a camera-based meeting where we were talking about all this type of stuff. It's very challenging, actually. So one of the things that we absolutely wanted to do as one of our kind of like unique aspects to our game was to enable people to have these really just cool either creature-based heroes or just much bigger heroes that almost feel a bit boss-like. We didn't want to kind of be, I don't know, just like constrained into that normal humanoid sort of size level hero. So that was one of our aims, and that's what we're still trying to achieve. It is difficult, like cameras, trying to have a dragon standing next to a normal dude. It's difficult. We're working around systems on it now. I will say, what most people don't realize is a load of this stuff, like clipping of heroes overlapping other people, cloths coming through knees, weapons clipping into the ground. That stuff actually happens in probably all the games you play. Your eyes just don't see it. And it's not until you properly are hard focused on trying to look for it that you realize it's happening all the time. And sometimes we're the same. We get really sort of caught up on things, and we're like, oh, there's Odin. I can see his knees just come out of the cloth. We need to redo that. And so we're trying to be as kind of like, I guess, perfectionist on that type of stuff as we can. But ultimately, we're trying to make sure that we build a really enjoyable game. And we'll see. We'll see how it plays through. But we want for you to have, a dragon standing next to Odin, standing next to this cool like four-arm dude, which I'm about to leak in Discord really soon. And
stop it.
and for that to be like mainly the fun element of the game. Like if that means that we have to, turn particular heroes off when another hero is having a turn from your team so that you can see correctly from the camera, and that's the type of trickery that we have to do. But ultimately, it's just about building fun teams and enjoying the roster that you've got and that type of stuff. So, but yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy at all.
No,
Yes.
can't imagine so. So it's been mentioned that there's going to be approximately 100 heroes for the beta testing that will come out. Now, and I think it was mentioned at one point, maybe across 5 factions. Now, for me, as building the website, there are clear factions which have a lot more characters in them than others. So I guess the question is, can you confirm which factions they will be? Because the way I see it, Aru, Asgard, Avalon, and Olympus are more fleshed out than the others, it would appear. And with the most recent sort of, look at Kojiki in more detail, that to me would seem like a good 5th.
Oh, I'll hand this one to you.
Of course you would. You want me to take it. All I can tell you is that I can't exactly say 100% which factions are going to be in. But I can probably say confidently, like Olympus is going to be there because you've seen so many leaks from different Olympus, right? You've seen lots of characters. The Gamescom demo. You've seen, Big Herc and his club and smashing things. So there's absolutely going to be some things that make sense, but it's a bit too soon for us to say 100% which factions are not going to be there, because things can evolve as we get down the pipeline and as we start mapping out some of key content pieces that we want to explore. Because obviously the key goal of the closed beta is for us to get, good feedback from the people that have supported us so far, from Patreon and from the people that signed up. Those people are really important to us to get their feedback. So that's why we're making this game. We're not making this game just because, to Simon's point, that we want to sell some microtransaction packs. We're making the game because other games didn't make it for the community. We absolutely want to make it for the community. So feedback, it depends on really what we want to get and what we want to test there. That will probably define what heroes make that cut. But at the moment, it's a bit too soon for us to be like, yeah, these are in, these are out. But it's safe to assume that any hero that you have seen actually in a demo is probably going to be there in the closed beta. And that's as far as I'm going to go before I get shouted at by a certain director.
And it's worth saying as well. So we are going to have like a certain number of factions that we're concentrating on for the beta, but they still need to fight enemies. Probably in the beta, there'll be this kind of like more of a mishmash of enemies than what we would have at launch, because we kind of just have to use the assets that we've got ready. So some of the stuff you might have seen from other factions, we're building out our pipelines, and we're kind of trying to tackle challenges as early as we can so that we've got the pipeline ready to go. So, for example, I'm talking about a 4-man dude. We need to get that rig done so that we're then able to basically give our kind of like outsourced partners all of the key requirements to be able to produce these characters.
Yeah.
So there's certain rigs that we have to work on and make sure that we've got a number of characters for all of those, which means that we start to bleed into other factions and stuff like that anyway. And obviously, no character that we create is lost because we're going to launch with them when we actually launch. So, you will see other ones outside. There'll be some that we've already made that just don't have a place in the beta at all. Which faction are you most excited by, I guess?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose it also sort of comes down to my current favorite looking hero, I suppose, right now at the moment. And for me, that's Heimdall.
Okay, cool.
Like, I really like the look of Heimdall. I think he looks super cool. So I guess from that point of view, I'd be looking forward to Norse or Asgard, I suppose, in this instance, just because I think he looks really cool. Also, I'd love to see Pangu's axe in game. Like that 2D concept, like it looks so sweet. And
he's just been made in 3D.
Future leak. So he's leaking the leaks. This is how deep he goes.
We've already seen him, but he's just come through in 3D. It looks really sweet. So
the guys are knocking it out of the park with some of these ideas. And like the thing is, the more we go deeper, like we started off with the simples. Now we're getting into Simon's point, getting into the more crazy concept in. So I think the next 6 months, as we get closer and closer towards like closed beta launch and various different things, you're going to start seeing even more like cool looking concepts. So your favorite's going to change, because it happens to us all the time. We start with this is my favorite, then it goes this is my favorite, and this is my favorite, and now it's kind of like I can't have 12 favorites, but every time they come out with something new, I'm like, that looks amazing, and I feel like, we might need to go back and look at that character. We know we can't do that, like, but it's actually, when you look at the whole collection, it's going to be really cool. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. So I suppose that sort of conversation leads nicely into the next question. When Hel dropped, there was a lot of hype on her aesthetic and how you'd sort of leveled up in her design and things like that. And while she is a good-looking character, simply, is she still your favorite-looking character from an aesthetic point of view, or is there someone that has yet to be seen that has now taken over that spot? And if it is, you don't have to name who it is.
I'll let Brad go first on this one. I'm thinking.
Is there a new one that I think would be favorite that hasn't been leaked yet? Was that your question?
Or your favorite, I guess.
Or just your favorite. So from what you've seen, whether I've seen it or not, is there someone that you think it looks better now than Hel?
Hel was amazing. That was probably one of my favorite ones that they've done in terms of the art team. Yeah, I think so, but I don't think it's come out yet. But Hel would be in my top 3. You nailed that. I absolutely loved that design when that came out back around Halloween or so. But I've got a couple. I don't know that we've leaked my favorite. But yeah, I've got one that was my favorite to design and my favorite to see concepted for sure. But you don't have it on your website.
No, that's cool. Which means I certainly haven't seen it, and I'm doing my best to keep up on it. So
yeah, I'm probably. For me personally, I still think Hel is my favorite that's gone through to 3D. But we've definitely got some 2D concepts which are like massively rivaling Hel. Like I can't wait for them to be made in 3D. So yeah, I think over the next 3 or 4 months, we're going to start to see some, like Paul said, some crazy stuff which just kind of like pushes what you've seen so far, which is always the idea, right? We started off with some of the safer designs, I guess. So we got a bit of a runway going, and then we started to crank it up and really got the artist to really just like let loose. It's like express what you think is going to be just super cool. And that's always our benchmark does it feel cool? Like that's it. That's a good benchmark, I think. It's like, does it hit certain beats with the mythology and that sort of stuff, but also is it just a really cool interpretation? So yeah, I think we've got a few coming through at the moment, which I'm super psyched by. But I don't know, Paul, have you got any which kind of like come to mind that have been out there already?
I think my favorite ones are probably haven't been concepted yet, and that's gives you an idea of how exciting it is. Some of the characters we've got coming out. Some of them are like Certainly when you get to certain mythologies.
What faction are you?
I don't even know if we've leaked the faction.
I would definitely have all the factions.
All 10 factions are out, yeah.
Okay, so it's basically the Babylonian faction for me. Some of those character concepts are wild. Like you'll like, I don't know what it is about that mythology, but it is, some of the characters and the histories and that are simply just wild. And I can't wait to see the concepts coming out. And I think it will completely, like my current favorite one, I don't know if we've leaked, but he's from the Virage one. I don't know if we've leaked it. You probably know what you're talking about, Simon, but I don't know if we've leaked that one. That's my favorite at the moment.
I don't think so, no.
And he's also my favorite skill set that we've got so far.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you actually, Ragewood, like, if I'm doing a video and you're reacting to it, a lot of the time you just know who the hero is that I'm showing before I say who it is. Do you have like did you study mythology in some way, or is it just like a massive passion of yours, or like, how do you have such a wide knowledge?
No, I was a bit of a nerd in school, and even at college I studied classics, which is like ancient Greece, ancient Rome, that kind of thing. I didn't do very well because by the time I was 17 and 18, I knew better and I used to get out of sort of school and things there. But growing up, I had horrible histories and just sort of the mythos I've always found quite fascinating, just through growing up. Now, like Virage, for example, I'm really enjoying now because I know so little. So I've been looking into it to try and find out more about these things. But yeah, I guess you could say it's been like a small passion of mine for a long time.
What? Yeah, and I know we have a kind of a meeting coming up internally here in a few minutes, but Ragewood, is there any last like burning question that you really wanted to get in at the top of your priority list? I don't want to cut you short or miss out on anything.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So I'll go one more. The others are quite lengthy. So it's been mentioned in the Gamescom with Sham. He mentioned that Poseidon isn't actually going to be there for the launch of the game. Are there any big names that you really wanted to get into the game, but for one reason couldn't?
Oh, there is one. There is actually one, isn't there? That we wanted to do, but we can't do. There is actually one big one, but it'll come later, so that's probably okay.
Yeah, and that's generally the train of thought is certainly some of these factions, like Aru, Egyptian themed. There's so many very cool like gods in that kind of like mythos, and obviously a lot of people know the Norse, but actually Avalon, like there's so many where there's just way more than we could create in terms of heroes. And also, you know, we see it so often. How is that one only a rare? It's like, well, you should see the gods. Like there's no way that they could be on the same plane as the kind of legendaries we've got in there right now. So they have to kind of sit somewhere. But yeah, I think so. But that's really good for us as well. There's plenty which are going to come later. That's really good for us because, you know, we're going to be doing events on a monthly basis where you'll have the opportunity to win and earn these different heroes that come in. We'll be doing obviously just new champion drops anyway, and eventually down the line we'll do new faction drops as well. But you know, you need to have that kind of ability to keep scaling up a hero base so that it stays fresh and exciting and that type of stuff. So,
and to that point as well, we're also extremely mindful of cultural impact, right? We are talking about some characters and some legends that are very important to a lot of different cultures. So we want to make sure we pay homage correctly. So it would, I'm sure, like, imagine we decided to take Zeus and make him an uncommon character, you know, it's kind of like, that would be almost like a slap in the face to anyone who feels Greek. So we always try to make sure that when we're looking at all the characters from all these mythologies, that we position them in our game universe so that they get a good representation and that it feels important to people. And we certainly are constantly always mindful whenever we pick up a character that we read into the mythology. Obviously we're interpreting, so it's not like a like for like. We're not going to make, you know, this is, you know, Achilles and he falls over when you shoot him with an arrow in the heel kind of thing, or like that kind of, all these different legends you hear in lots of different cultures. But we are 100% whenever we look at them going, okay, is this a good representation, or it's right when we put them into the different positioning of where we position those heroes, is that fair? Because to Simon's point, you know, you couldn't have gods being paired alongside lowly serfs, or, little crossbowman. You're like, this just doesn't make sense. So that's one of the challenges we do have picking gods and legends and that IP that we've gone for is, we do have to stay true to a culture and keep, represent them properly.
And Ragewood, did we ever get to let you lastly here kind of say who your favorite is? Like who you're like, come on, Godforge has got to have this in the game. Did we ever let you?
No. So who? If there was one character that I could pick, who would I want them to be? No, we haven't done that. But
okay, great.
And I've actually got sort of 2 or 3 which I couldn't pick between. So I guess we'll just briefly go over all 3 of them. So for Virage, Volos or Vele, he's known to be the sort of other half to Perrin, who was dropped to us recently. Really cool. Sort of, he's like his lore. Like he turns into a snake. He goes up the tree, and then Perrin bats him down, and that sort of links into the seasons. That's a sort of a really cool sort of backstory line. Quetzalcoatl, I think that's what it was, the dragon that was recently dropped.
I'm so glad you struggle with it as well, because like trying to type that out is impossible.
His like one of his sort of major enemies as well is Tezcatlipoca. He was like a
I can't say that one.
An Aztec jaguar god of like rulers and prophecy, and the way they saw things is like he became the sun, and then Quetzalcoatl knocked him out, and then Quetzal was at the top there, and then it sort of flip-flops. That's kind of cool storyline. But I think the ones I'd like to see the most are Erebus and Nyx. They are primordial sort of beings in a Greek sort of mythology of like darkness and night. Erebus covers the world in shadow, and then Nyx has like this horse-drawn night chariot which he drags him across the sky, and that's how you sort of get night and day. I think those would be the sort of the 2 coolest ones I'd definitely want to see if it was possible.
Hey, great detailed response. Thank you. And so Ragewood, it's been amazing chatting with you, and thanks for taking the time to join us and share your perspectives.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and great job with the website and keeping us up to date on what's been leaked and what hasn't. We'll try to remember to link to the website down below, ragewoodgaming.com, and then also Ragewood's channel over there producing some awesome content. So, Paul, Simon, thanks, and Ragewood, it's been a great chat. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. See you soon.
Yep. Cheers, everybody.